That he who blesseth himself in the earth shall bless himself in the God of truth. And he that sweareth in the earth shall swear by the God of truth, because the former troubles are forgotten, and because they are hid from thine eyes. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, and the former shall not be remembered, nor come into mind. But be ye glad and rejoice forever in that which I create. For behold, I create Jerusalem a rejoicing, and her people a joy. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem, and joy in my people. And the voice of weeping shall be no more heard in her, nor the voice of crying. There shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that hath not filled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old. But the sinner, being 100 years old, shall be accursed. And they shall build houses and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and eat the fruit of them. They shall not build, and another inhabit. They shall not plant, and another eat. Whereas the days of a tree are the days of my people, and mine elect shall long enjoy the work of their hands. They shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth for trouble, for they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. And it shall come to pass that before they call, I will answer, and while they are yet speaking, I will hear. The wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith the Lord.
This is exactly what the Most High is going to do with his elect, with the nation of Israel in general. Because the nation of Israel will be a nation of superhumans on the planet Earth. And this is what's coming.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Kakodash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessing, salutations to the hopeful lake out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, pushing to get up out there. Shalom to the hopeful lake, the believers, the listeners who have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shah. All right. And what I want to get into today, okay, is in this lesson or the video I was watching. Well, I did a lesson on a video yesterday, and it was going into, how society has been dumbed down. And on that same channel, I watched another video yesterday, and it just reminded me of a lot of scriptures, because the scriptures speak about stupidity. Okay. And Esau Edom has created an era of stupidity in society. The way this man has dumbed people down, through the media, through the foods, through what's in the air, like everything is meant, to dumb you down. The school system, which I got a video about that as well, going into the school system. Okay. But from the time you're born into the society, you get the juice, you get the, the juice at the hospital, when you're born. Okay, you go to these schools that dumb you down. All right, you eat these foods, that dumb you down. Okay, and then you get pushed these doctrines, and you're born into a culture that's dumbed down. And you're told, lies repeatedly, till you believe everything but the truth. Okay? And this is why when we go here to the scripture, all right, let's get this Ecclesiastes 10:6. It says, folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in a low place. Okay, and this is the era that we're in when stupidity is rewarded. Okay, people go viral for what? Doing the dumbest things. Okay, stupidity is rewarded in this society, man. Okay, folly. Okay, people that have no value. Okay, because they excel in folly, they're rewarded here, man. And Esau rewards the behavior that he desires of the people. All right, because the more dumbed down people are, okay, the more that he can rule with no kickback. He can rule in wickedness with no kickback. Okay, and this man wants to rule over a bunch of zombies. Okay, and each generation, all right, that goes by, people are becoming more and more primitive. More and more. All right, you know, illiterate. You see, and this is why he's also making it easy for AI to replace people because it's not that AI is just super great. You know, it's cute. It got his little things to it, but ultimately he's dumbing people down. So that goes for his argument that AI should take over here and there because people have been dumbed down so much. Okay, so I want to get straight to the video, and then we'll get some more precepts. I got a list. All right, because the scriptures speak against stupidity. Okay, in a lot of verses, man. Okay, because that's a dangerous thing. When you go into it, it speaks about how stupidity, is a dangerous thing. But let's go here. He's going to explain it. Says why stupid people are a greater threat to society than criminals. And the channel is Philonautica. Okay, which I say he got a few good videos. Um, let's go here. So I just watched two of them. The two I watched were pretty good. This the one I did a lesson on yesterday, and this one I'm about to do one on now. All right, so we're gonna go into
They
it.
cling to their
We're gonna show you how a lot of things that he's saying. All right, line up with what's spoken in the scriptures, man. Because the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth, man, all the way around. So let's play this. We'll get some precepts.
There is a hidden force more dangerous than evil itself, one that Dietrich Bonhoeffer believed was responsible for immense destruction during World War II. Unlike evil, this force cannot be reasoned with, exposed, or even fought directly. It's
fair use, fair use. All right, this video is being shown only for educational purposes. I'm not making any, all right, profit or monetary gains. Fair use, fair use.
spread silently, rendering people blind to truth and immune to logic. That force is stupidity. But why did Bonhoeffer see stupidity as a greater threat than evil? Why did he describe it not just as an intellectual failure, but as a moral and social crisis? In this video, I will break down Bonhoeffer's insights, helping you recognize the signs of stupidity in others, and perhaps even in yourself. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, born in February 1906, was a German Lutheran pastor, neo-Orthodox theologian, anti-Nazi dissident, and resistance fighter. For years, he tried to change minds. He spoke out against growing hatred, blind obedience, and the way people turned a blind eye to the cruelty happening around them. He believed that if he could just make them see, just make them understand, they would wake up.
If your bath has seen a lot of life, nobody gives it new life like Bath Fitter. Whatever shape your bath is in.
But no matter how much evidence he presented, no matter how clear the truth was, people refused to listen. One evening, after years of resisting the regime, he returned home to find his father waiting for him with a heavy heart. Two men were in his room. They had come to take him away. Locked in a prison cell, Bonhoeffer had nothing but time to think. He had watched his country, once a land of poets and thinkers, descend into a mob of cowards and criminals. He had seen friends, neighbors, even intellectuals surrender their morality, not because they were all evil, but because they had stopped thinking. And then he realized the real enemy wasn't malice. It was stupidity. There were reasons he considered this a greater threat than evil, which I will now discuss. Evil, according to Bonhoeffer, can be confronted. It can be exposed, fought, and even defeated. There is always a way to resist it because at its core, evil knows what it is. Even the worst of people deep down recognize that what they are doing is wrong. This is why evil carries within itself the seed of its own destruction. It leaves behind a sense of unease, a lingering guilt that can be exploited and overturned. But stupidity? Stupidity is immune. Immune to logic, blind to reason, and deaf to truth. It does not engage, it simply refuses to see. You can argue with a malicious person, but you cannot argue with a stupid one because they do not recognize facts. They dismiss them. They do not debate. They mock. And most dangerously, they are utterly convinced of their own rightness. This is what makes stupidity more dangerous than malice. Malice can be countered, but stupidity is impervious. Martin Luther King Jr. said something very similar. Nothing in the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity. The most terrifying aspect of stupidity is that it often operates unconsciously. People who act foolishly do not even realize it. They believe they are right. They cling to their views with such certainty that no argument, no evidence, no rational explanation can shake them. Instead of questioning their beliefs, they double down, becoming even more rigid. As Mark Twain famously said, "Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience." We have all encountered different kinds of stupid people who use dismissive slogans whenever we try to engage with them. They say things like "whatever" or "I don't care," their way of avoiding the reality of their own stupidity. It is frustrating, much like dealing with a narcissist, because they will never change. But the danger of stupidity extends beyond the individual level. It spreads within society like a sickness. It infiltrates groups, movements, and systems that demand obedience. The power of one depends on the stupidity of the many. This is why mass stupidity so often accompanies rising authoritarianism. People do not lose their intelligence. They surrender it. They give up their independence in exchange for belonging. They stop thinking critically and start repeating whatever they are told. And once a person has surrendered their mind, there is no limit to what they can be made to do. They will commit evil and never see it as evil. They will spread lies and call it truth. They will destroy lives, convinced they are on the right side of history. This is why stupidity is not just frustrating, it is dangerous. It is a weapon in the hands of those who know how to use it. And perhaps the most chilling realization, you cannot fix it with reason. To combat it, we must first understand the true nature of stupidity. Stupidity does not question itself. It does not feel doubt or shame. It moves forward with absolute confidence, and in doing so, it becomes an unstoppable force in service of whatever it has chosen to follow. Bonhoeffer saw this firsthand. He lived in a nation once known for its poets and philosophers, Germany, the land of Goethe, Kant, and Beethoven. And yet he watched as it turned into a nation of cowards and criminals. He saw ordinary people, many of them intelligent and educated, surrender their ability to think and instead blindly follow the Nazi regime. This is why Bonhoeffer argued that stupidity is not an intellectual defect but a moral one. A person can be brilliant in thought yet utterly foolish in action. Consider Martin Heidegger, one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century, who, despite his intellect, pledged loyalty to the Nazi Party and remained unrepentant until his death in 1976. He was smart, but he was also deeply stupid, as according to Bonhoeffer. By contrast, a person can be intellectually slow, yet profoundly wise, moral, and kind. Intelligence and wisdom are not the same. Stupidity, as Bonhoeffer saw it, is not a lack of intelligence. It is a failure of moral courage. And one is not born stupid. One becomes stupid. How that happens is what I will discuss next.
When lives depend on physical strength and mental sharpness, blood flow matters. That's why firefighters rely on Viniac, the red grape.
Stupidity is a state of mind that arises when a person surrenders their responsibility to think. It is not an inborn trait, but a transformation, a condition that people allow themselves to fall into. This transformation is not merely personal, it is social. Stupidity thrives in groups, where independent thought is discouraged, where people simply follow orders, conform, and submit to prevailing narratives without question. Bonhoeffer observed how the Nazi regime turned ordinary people into unthinking followers. They were not inherently evil, nor were they necessarily unintelligent. But they stopped questioning. They let go of their ability to discern truth from falsehood. They became tools of a greater agenda. Bonhoeffer described this phenomenon as almost a sociological law. A similar transformation was depicted by George Orwell in 1984, where Big Brother brainwashed people to the point of limiting their very thoughts. The regime did not just control their actions, it made them stupid so they could no longer think properly. Bonhoeffer made the same observation. When power rises, stupidity spreads. Under the influence of authority, whether political or ideological, many people willingly relinquish their inner independence. They accept the slogans, the propaganda, the oversimplified explanations, and they no longer see the world for what it is. And this is where stupidity becomes most dangerous. It is stubborn, yet passive. The stupid person does not think for themselves, yet they are fiercely convinced they are right. When confronted with facts or logic, they do not reconsider. They resist. You are not dealing with a person. You are dealing with the slogans and catchphrases that have taken possession of them. This is why Bonhoeffer argued that stupidity is harder to combat than evil. A stupid person will repeat lies even after they have been disproven. They will cling to falsehoods because they are no longer thinking for themselves. And this is precisely why a stupid person cannot simply be instructed or argued out of their stupidity. They must be liberated. Until that happens, debate is pointless. But there is a way to avoid falling into this seemingly innocent trap. If stupidity is not an intellectual deficiency, but a form of mental enslavement, then how can one avoid it? How can a person ensure they do not fall into the trap of blind conformity? This is what I will discuss point by point. Bonhoeffer warns that people become stupid when they give up the ability to question, analyze, and think independently. The first step to avoiding stupidity is to refuse to stop thinking. Always ask questions. Challenge authority when necessary.
Man, that's he went into this. He was speaking, and it just had me to thinking of all these precepts, that go into exactly what he's saying. All right, and we see that the elites, have destroyed people's critical thinking. Okay, to where when you're talking to a person, it's like you're talking to a walking billboard. You're talking to MAGA. All right, all these slogans, you keep hearing MAGA, make America great again, my body, my choice, I don't need a man, okay, I'm a real nigga. Like all these are just slogans that people live by, and it's rooted in stupidity. Okay, Jesus loves everyone. It's all rooted in stupidity, not real knowledge. Okay, so that's why when you go here, um, let's get a few precepts. All right, this is the book of Proverbs. Okay, 14:7. All right, it says Proverbs 14:7 says, "Go from the presence of a foolish man when thou perceivest not in him the lips of knowledge." Okay, because it's pointless to argue with a goddamn fool, man. And America, especially, has bred foolish people. Okay, that's why there's no sense. That's why, like the apostles say, we don't get into debates. Okay, because arguing with a fool, all right, is a waste of time. All right, people are stuck in their stupidity. Okay, and here it is. They don't think for themselves, but the things that they're being trained, to believe, all right, they're die hard about it. Okay, they can't even explain what they believe. A Christian cannot explain to you what Christianity is. Okay, most women that push feminism, they can't even explain to you what that is. What is feminism? What is Christianity? Okay, what is being a real nigga? What is that? Okay, make America great again. What does that mean? Okay, well, these people, are stuck on these slogans, all right, and have been dumbed down, to be gung ho and die hard about these certain slogans and mantras when they don't even know what it means. Okay, they can't explain to you. People can't even explain to you what they're willing to die for, man. Okay, that's why you go here to verse 12. All right, let me see. Uh, it's Proverbs 4. Look at this in Proverbs 4, and is it 4 and 12? Might have been 14. So lucky. Yep. Yeah, 12, and then we'll jump to 15. It said Proverbs 14:12. It said, "There is a way which seemeth right unto a man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." So there's a way that seems right, unto the masses. Okay, but they don't know that they're on the path to death, man. Esau has the masses just marching to death. Okay, thinking that they're right. There's a Christian that Christians think. You have Christians that think that they really serving the God of the Bible. Okay, you got people who think that they do these good deeds, and they think that they're really right. Okay, you got people that support America, all right, and the wickedness that America does, and see people think they're right. To be pro-American, like there's so many. That's why it's called the broad gate. Because on the broad gate there's so many different ways, and Esau has everyone thinking that they're on the right path. My body, my choice. They think that's a righteous slogan. Okay, you see. So there's so many paths that lead to death, and Esau, he's just a Pied Piper, pushing out all these doctrines and philosophies of stupidity. Okay, and people are cleaving to him. Okay, and is leading to death. Okay, verse 15 it said, "The simple believe it every word." All right, but the prudent man look it well until he's going. All right, and in these times, the scriptures have made us prudent to where we can look into these things, man. First, we had to be, loose, as the scriptures say, from the power of darkness, man. Okay, because unless the Lord, all right, sets us free from the enchantments of the devil, okay, you're going to be entangled. We will be entangled in these things, man. All right, let's go here. Proverbs. I think the brother had posted Proverbs 24, and I think it's 26. All right, let me get this in the NLT. All right, Proverbs 26:4 in the NLT. All right, it says, "Don't answer, all right, the foolish arguments of fools." you will become as foolish as they are. Okay, Mark Twain said, you argue with a fool, he'll bring you down to his level and then beat you with experience, man. Okay, because in order to argue with a fool, you have to. It's a certain point to where you got to throw away logic just to argue with this man or this woman. Okay, it comes a point you're arguing with someone that's stuck in stupidity. That's a goddamn fool. You got to throw logic out the window just to have an argument with this nigga. Okay, now nobody's making sense. Okay, and you keep going, you jump down. All right, the verse 7 says, "A proverb in the mouth of a fool is as useless as a paralyzed dog." Okay, so our people, there's no sense of teaching people that's not meant to get it. Okay, because wisdom with them is useless as a paralyzed leg. All right, they're not. It's useless. Okay, they're not equipped to deal with wisdom, man. And scripture say wisdom is too high for a fool. Okay. Verse 11, it says, "A dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats his foolishness, man." Okay? As a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats his foolishness, man. And that's why you see our people as a culture of the same mistakes, generation after generation, making the same exact mistakes instead worse. Okay? You look at nigga culture, it's just a bunch of people making the same mistakes over and over again, except each generation becomes worse. Okay? They repeat the same foolishness, man. Okay, and they get the same results or even worse. All right, and this is why the Lord ain't got us out here bending over backwards trying to make niggas get it. This ain't for niggas, man. Okay, this is for the elect whom the Lord will awaken in these days, man. All right, but for the majority of our people, this ain't for them. Okay, the Lord has them stuck on stupid so He can destroy them, man. He wants them not to get it. He wants them to be dumbed down. Okay, to be stuck, to be hard necked, to be stiff necked. Okay, this is go to the KJV. This is Proverbs 17 and 16. It says, "Wherefore is there a price in the hand of a fool to get wisdom, seeing he have no heart to it, man? He has no mind to it." Okay, fools don't care about wisdom. They think they're wise. All right, they think they're wise in their stupidity. Okay, like you had the nigga woman. She like an Edomite, but she was a nigga woman, talking about people talking about me and my 6 baby dads and my 6 children. Do you know how much assistance I get? You know, see, in her mind, that's wise. She like, I get this much in child support, I get this much in food stamps. See, in her mind, that's wise. Okay, that's extremely wise in her mind. All right, but she's not thinking about how that destroys the development of the children, how that's confusion. Okay, and then what happens is stupidity becomes everybody's problem. Okay, because now you have a whole culture of stupidity, and now these young niggas and these little young hoes grow up and they everybody problem now. Okay, so that's why stupidity, all right, what the video said, stupidity, all right, or why stupid people are a greater threat to society than criminals, man. Okay, because it's stupidity that breeds criminals, man. Okay, you got niggas going to prison, 10, 15 years, all right, trying to rob a certain store. To them, that's wise. We're gonna go rob this store and get this money. In their mind, that's wise. Okay, you just got 15 years, 10 years, all right, for a chance of $8,000. Okay, but in the nigga mind, that's wise. Okay, because John got away with it last week, so that's wise to go try to repeat that, as if consequences don't exist. Okay, you jump to verse 24. It says, "Wisdom is before him that have understanding, but the eyes of a fool are in the ends of the earth, man. Random as hell. Stupidity. That's why you have a random ass culture, man. Okay, because it's a culture of stupidity. There's no logic, there's no critical thinking. You see? And this is why even in the when you go to the New Testament, all right, but before we get that, I want to get this real quick. So Rock 27. Copy and paste it. You know? And that's why you see the apostles, they take the stance that they take, dealing with Christians. All right. Christian is a goddamn fool, man. Stupidity. All right. Arguing with Christians would be like arguing with, all right, pure stupidity, man. To even believe that doctrine. All right. And they don't know what they believe, So it would be a waste of time to try to have, a scholarly conversation with a Christian. Because first of all, Christians not scholarly. The majority of them. You have a few, it's mainly the Edomite Christian, but the nigger Christian for damn sure ain't scholarly. Okay, so he couldn't even understand. They wouldn't even be understand the points, all right, or the perspective, okay, that we bringing out because they don't know enough to argue with. Okay, they don't know enough, all right, to have an argument, man. Okay, this is Sirach 27:13. It says the discourse of fools is irksome. Okay, the discourse of fools is irksome, man. That's why you can get a real headache trying to explain something to a goddamn idiot, man. Like these little bimbos on these podcasts, they be trying to justify feminism and women's equality, man. Like you can get a headache just listening to them. It's irksome. That's why I can't just watch a lot of that, man. Like when it first came out, the red pill, we was on it, getting different talking points, but now it just irksome, man. All right, because the same dumb rhetoric, and after a while, see fools, all right, the stupidity only have so much they can say before they start repeating themselves again. Okay, because they don't have argument, they just have these pre-made rebuttals. Okay, these these premeditated rebuttals, and most of the time it's a slogan. Okay, when people begin to talk in slogans, that means that they have no intellectual, what you call a capacity, So we get to the point to where a lot of these foolish arguments on the internet is irksome, man. Talking about I'm the prize and what I bring to the table, I am the table, and all this crazy shit. Like it's irksome. You see, because it's just a dumbass argument. Okay, that no one is getting anywhere. Everybody's just trying to prove some type of point. Okay, and it's all rooted in stupidity, man. Okay, it says the discourse of fools is irksome, and their sport is the wantonness of sin. Okay, the undisciplined being undisciplined in sin. Okay, so this is why we're not sent, all right, to argue with these goddamn fools, man. Okay, so let's go here to the book of Titus. Okay, it's the book of Titus, chapter 3 and 9. Okay, this is the book of Titus, chapter 3, verse 9. It says, but avoid foolish questions and genealogies and contentions and scribings about the law, for they are unprofitable and vain. Okay, because here it is, someone to question, people come with these foolish ass questions. Okay, or say, well, how do you know you go back to Levi? Or how do you know, that you're the Israelite? How do y'all know this, and how do you know that, and how, can you trace? Have you had your DNA done, and all these, just contentions, and unprofitable questions, man. They don't have any answers because the easiest thing to say, the easiest thing to do is to disagree with something. Okay? But then when you ask someone to explain what they believe, they can't do it or explain their reasoning because it's easier to just to pose a question to create strife. That's easy to do. To say that don't mean that. How do you know it mean that? See, that's easy to do. But how can you prove what you believe? Okay? And like I say, they'll say things where whatever, or, you know, I don't care. You see? But it's a society that wasn't taught, to deal with logic, to deal with intelligence, and to be intellectual and to be literate. Okay? So this is why we don't deal, all right, it's certain questions that we don't even respond to, man. Certain questions come on the comment board, we're not responding to that, man. You know? Because it's pointless. It will be vain. Nothing, you will get nothing out of it, man. Okay, this Titus 3 and 10, it says, a man that is an heretic after the first and second admonition reject. Okay? So the apostle Paul is writing to Titus and like, look, don't get caught up in all them foolish ass questions, contentious and scribing. All right. And if they don't get it after the second warning, then reject them, let them go. All right, because there's absolutely no point in arguing with a goddamn fool, man. Okay, let's go here because even Yahweh Shai, he was telling the disciples, man. All right, Matthew 7, okay, and 6, it says, give not that which is holy, which is this wisdom, unto the dogs, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. Okay, because arguing with a nigga, arguing with a goddamn fool, trying to break down this wisdom to a goddamn fool, okay, could work against you, man, because niggas hate wisdom. Okay? Speaking of our people, they hate wisdom, man. Okay, they love folly. They love not having the responsibility that comes with wisdom. Because when you operate in folly, it doesn't come with any responsibility. Okay, it doesn't come with any discipline. Okay, and Jake loved to operate on that time. So Yahweh Shai, don't even waste your time giving this wisdom to the dogs or the swine. And he's speaking about our people 2/3, man. Okay, that this wisdom is not for. All right, that's why even in Matthew, real quick, let's get this in Matthew 13. It's Matthew 13 and 10. It says, and the disciples came and said unto him, why speakest thou unto them in parables? He answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. Okay? You see? So it's not given to everyone, only a few select, all right, was meant, okay, to get the mysteries of the kingdom, the mysteries of rulership, the mysteries of the age of righteousness to come. Only a few was meant to receive that, man. Okay, this is why we're not here to force this upon anyone. Okay, the Lord gave them over to stupidity, but he let's go here, 2 Corinthians 4. I got another video just to show, that this is systematically being done. Okay, now this is 2 Corinthians 4 and 3. Okay, it said, but if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. Okay, so the Lord has our people, in this stupor, okay, this stupefied state. Okay, and the gospel is hid to them. The good news is hid to them because they, all right, only believe what they believe. Okay, they only are meant to reason, to a certain level. They're not able to reason and grasp this truth, man, because the Lord didn't give it to them. What makes the difference between us and them is the Lord gave us the spirit, all right, to digest this truth, man, to understand these things, man. Okay? And it says, in whom the God of this world have blinded the minds of them which believe not, least the light of the glorious gospel of Hamashiach, who is the image of the Most High, shall shine unto them. So unless, the Lord, translate someone from darkness to light by hearing his word, there's nothing that we can say or do. Because we can preach and teach all day. But if the Lord doesn't intervene, okay, and open up the minds, all right, of those, okay, that are blind, those that are in darkness, then there's no perfect lesson. There's no amount of information. There's no amount of evidence that we can show for them to get it. Okay, if the Lord doesn't intervene, okay, and open the minds, all right, of someone that's listening, there's nothing that can be said or done for them to get it. Okay, that's why in Colossians, and then we're gonna go to this next video. But you go to the book of Colossians chapter 1 and verse 12. All right, and it starts off with giving thanks. Okay, we have to be extremely thankful, man, because the Lord can have us hard hearted. We haven't been delivered yet, so we ain't like, hey, the Lord, hey, you know, the Lord can put us back in the stupor, man. We can be in the madness of this stupidity, man. And that's a scary thing, I know brothers, all right. I know I've been in camp, brothers that was formerly in the camp, man, to see them go back into the world like the truth don't exist. Men that were teaching, shoulder to shoulder, which are back in the truth. Are back in the world as if the truth don't exist, man. Back in stupidity. Okay? It says, giving thanks unto the Father, which have made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light. So the Lord has begun to make us worthy. And it began with this, verse 13, who have delivered us from the power of darkness, man. Okay? Because the power of darkness is Esau, Edom, these elites. Okay? The wickedness that's in high places, man. Okay? That's putting these enchantments and pushing, the propaganda and the psyops and the media that has people just extremely dumbed down. Okay? To the point that you can't argue with. Okay? And it says, and have translated us into the kingdom, all right, of your dear son. Okay? Because before we actually go into the kingdom, okay, we will have to be loose from the power of darkness, okay, which is the enchantments of this world, and begin to think and operate, okay, in the ways of Yahweh Bashim Al Shah, which is leading to a kingdom, okay. So let's go here. All right, got this video here I want to get about, you know, uh, high school students that can't even read, you know. So you have these teachers. A lot of teachers are quitting, because they're having to deal with, students that can't read. How the hell can they teach? By the time you get to high school and you don't even know how to read, how the hell can they do their job? Okay, but this is the society that the elites, okay, are making these things, are making this the norm because they want to rule over a dumbed down society. The few people that they want left in this new world order are going to be complete zombies. All right, and AI is going to be their masters, and the elites plan to be the masters of the AI. Okay, you see. So let's play this. Dealing with these teachers.
At grade level. As a music teacher, I didn't really think I had. Our students cannot read at grade level. As a music teacher, I didn't really think I had a whole lot to add to this conversation, but I don't think a lot of y'all understand how much this is affecting them in every single course that they're taking, not just the ones where they're having to write and read passages like science and math and reading courses, but it's affecting them in every aspect of their schooling. I'm going to put up a chart of music staff so that you can see what exactly I'm talking about, because I have a story about this past year and some of the struggles that I saw in my band hall with kids that did not know how to read at their grade level. So what I was noticing this past year with my students is they weren't just having those typical issues that you would have to work through. A lot of these kids would not even use alphabet symbols. They would be making up symbols. They would not even know how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G on their piece of paper. They wouldn't know how to form those letters. They would also have issues not knowing alphabetical order in general. So if they knew how to write A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they couldn't answer to me what letter would come after C in the alphabet. And I would ask them things like that specifically. What comes after C in the alphabet? They couldn't answer it. And I'm not just talking one or two kids in the class. I'm talking closer to 50%. And we're not also just talking about sixth graders. We're talking about sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, kids that are about to go into high school. And did it make the job of teaching kids how to read music harder? Yes. But I think the reason why I'm wanting to point this out specifically is that a lot of teachers in middle school grades or upper level grades before you get into high school aren't necessarily dealing with skills that require you to go back to those remedial basics like the alphabet or drawing letters. But in music class, we literally work with the alphabet every single day. We only work with A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 7 letters of the alphabet. And a lot of these kids do not know the first 7 letters of their alphabet or what order they go in. So I can only imagine how they are having issues reading and writing when they can't even identify the first 7 letters of the alphabet. It is a crisis. And before you say, well, maybe you're just not teaching the concept good enough for them to understand that they need to use the alphabet, I would see a correlation most of the time between the kids that were having those issues that I discussed and the ones that could not complete a writing assignment in music class, which I did have them write things out a lot. And oftentimes the same kids that could not identify their alphabet or write things in alphabetical order also could not write passages on their own that were legible and readable.
I know all last week, all over social media, you saw nothing but teachers talking about how elementary and middle school kids are reading 4 years below grade level. Well, as a high school teacher, I'm here to inform you that high school kids are doing way worse. They are reading 6 years below grade level. The only difference is a whole heap of these kids are going to graduate at the end of this school year. And we are expecting them to go to college and obtain jobs when they cannot even comprehend basic skills, which is why we probably see a problem with employers finding employees. There are literally high school kids reading on a 3rd grade reading level, and still states are expecting teachers to prepare kids and have them pass state tests are on or above grade level. See, the issue is schools have dumbed it down for kids. They have made it so easy that kids believe that their only job is to show up and behave. And that should be enough to get a passing grade and to go on to the next grade level. We have a real issue here. And please do not talk to me about graduation rates, because Bugs Bunny could graduate in this era. Make it make sense.
Spell philosophy. Spell philosophy. Ain't no way, bro. You 16, he's 17. Y'all juniors and seniors in high school, man. Spell it. Ain't no way. We erase the board. We're going to forget about the other stuff. I'm going to give y'all another chance. Spell philosophy. Mother. Dog. Keep going. I'm curious. I'm curious to see. Come on. Spell philosophy. Yeah. Man. Damn face. Come on, get out the way. Let me see what y'all. Come on. All right. So that's. Oh, y'all ain't done. So philosophy. That's our final. That's our final word. Philosophy. Huh? Look at y'all. Man, spell cute, Makai. Spell cute. I'm gonna give you something simple. I ain't even gonna say no cute. That's a fourth grade word, dog. Spell cute. Spell it. Dog. Makai. That don't make no damn sense. That don't make no. I don't know what school you going to when you graduate. I don't know what you going. Y'all going back in grade.
Yeah, this is you know, and this is intentionally being done because now they're bringing in AI, self-driving cars, all right, automated checkout. Okay, so they're planning to get rid of a lot of people. The depopulation agenda. All right, we're going to see this thing in major effect if they get closer and closer to, um, mastering, this AI and replacing people. And they're going to use this argument of people being incompetent. Okay, for these jobs. The AI is outpacing people, but really, people are teaching AI and people are becoming dumber because they're dependent on AI. Okay, so people are becoming dumber, and AI seems to be way wiser than people because people are teaching AI while depending on AI, which makes them dumb. Okay, because you can type the first three letters, okay, and it spell the rest for you. You know, you can there's people that don't know. You move to a new city, all right, there's people that never learn the new city that they move to because they always use Google Maps. And we all have grew up in this age of technology. That's why it's good to do things the old way. Keep your mind sharp, man. I know the other day I went somewhere, and it was my first time going, so I Googled there, but then I was remembering everything, the landmarks, the roads, the streets I was passing. And then I turned the Google off on the way back and I made it back to where I was at. So now I know how to get there, from different parts of the town, from where I'm living at. So I'm just learning a new city, by remembering landmarks, how we used to do. You see? Well, see, this technology robs you of your your brain getting that exercise that it needs. Because the brain is a muscle. But this technology robs you of getting that exercise of the brain. Even this texting. Because when you text, now everybody texting and acronyms. Everything is an acronym. There's whole sentences texting acronyms. People have conversations in acronyms. No one is spelling anything out. Okay, which I'm not a big texter. I call, and really I like to, pull up, be in person, if I can. All right, but people text in acronyms now. Okay, so you have a society that their brain is not getting any exercise. Okay, they can't remember anything, they can't retain anything. All right, they have no problem solving, they have no critical thinking. Okay, and I'm gonna get one more with this Eve. She say she just quit. Say she cried. She left the school crying. Because of the state of the children. And see, you got elementary, so you gotta think these little demons coming to elementary, the first, second, third grade, they just pass them niggas right through. They don't want none of them niggas to fail because the children are getting worse. The conduct, they're rude, they're entitled. Okay, the parents are terrible, so they just passing these niggas on. So these niggas get these big niggas get 16, 17 and can't read. Okay, because they just been passing these niggas on, man. Okay, don't nobody want to deal with these niggas twice. Okay, so they just passing these niggas on. All right, and this is the product. Okay, high schoolers that can't read, man. Okay, now let's I'm gonna go on a little more in this video. Let me find E. Uh, Here you go.
We're Phoenix Energy, a family-owned oil company focused on unleashing American oil from North Dakota and Montana. We've already sold over 2.9 million barrels.
So many resources available.
So I'm gonna put this in the link. You can watch the rest of the video, but I can play this one more portion. Then I want to get something in Google, okay, as well that I looked up. But let's play this real quick.
Available to you.
I wanted to just spend a moment and tell people why I left the system. I'm a former English teacher, Oh my God. And a lot of my videos when I first started on TikTok talked about the school system and what was happening in the school system. So I've made a decision to retire, and I have retired. I literally have left. I'm done, and I'm gonna tell you why. It hurt me and it pained me to go into my classroom, present a book or present a text, and my kids didn't know the first thing about reading comprehension. My kids did not know the first thing about a literary discussion. My kids didn't know the first thing about a Socratic discussion. My kids didn't know the first thing about essential questions that are tied to the literature that we were reading. So I couldn't have a content specific conversation with my kids because my kids didn't know content specific vocabulary. And if you don't know the vocabulary attached to English, just like if you don't know it attached to math, you're not going to do well in that subject. So I left literally in tears because I knew that I would not. I was seeing the failing of the school system in the United States of America because I knew going forward unless something happens, I would never be able to enjoy a literary conversation with my students because my students could not read. I was teaching kids that were 3 to 4 grade levels behind. None of them understood what I was saying. And this is every school. This is not just one school. This is every school that I worked at. They did not understand any literature. They didn't understand the vocabulary words attached to the literature, and they didn't understand the figurative language devices that were used and why they were used. They didn't have any understanding about the author. They didn't have any understanding why an author put a flashback or why this particular genre was allegory. They didn't understand any of those things. So for me to even be in a school system that perpetrated and fronted and pretended like, oh, well, our kids are smart. No, they're not. They are smart, but they're not literally smart. And I think that that's what the part that hurt me the most, knowing that moving forward, I would not be able to enjoy that unless I opened up my own school or unless we got rid of these state standardized assessments that don't allow teachers to teach, but we only teach to the test. And that's why I left. So parents, if you come across this video, read to your kids and let your kids read back to you. And more than anything, ask your kids, do you understand what you just read? And have a discussion with them, okay?
Elementary school kids are not reading. Kids are not reading. Kids cannot read. It doesn't matter if your child's at an A school or if your child's at a D school or if your child's at a charter school or a private school. I have seen kids at all areas. They all struggle. They all struggle because they don't have exposure and they don't have consistency with reading. We can blame the Department of Education. We can blame the literacy rates being at an all-time high. We can blame the schools, the teachers, but education teacher of 4 years, I specifically teach kids with learning disabilities how to read and to read accurately. We're not talking about teaching kids to read with special education disabilities. We're talking about teaching kids to read that have not had that exposure and that just cannot read, and no environmental factors included. Exposure and consistency. These two things are most important when reading, and these kids are not exposed to reading at a young age, and they do not have consistent reading, whether that's at school, at home. They don't have enough exposure of reading in general. The perception of teaching kids to read is it is the teacher's job to teach their children to read. It is the school's job to teach their children to read. Have you been in a public education classroom recently? Teacher to student ratio makes it nearly impossible to differentiate all different reading levels consistently. And I'm talking every single day for targeted reading instruction. You can have the most experienced and most knowledgeable reading expert teaching your child. If you are not doing it consistently, and I mean at least 4 times a week, 15 to 20 minutes a session, it's not going to be effective. If you have elementary school kids that are reading at grade level or even below grade level, get them a tutor, get them extra support to give them those skills to have them be successful with reading. Reading is not meant to be natural, but you need consistency, exposure, and somebody that is qualified and knows the science of reading for it to be successful for any child in a short amount of time.
A language arts teacher is considering quitting her job because her 10th grade students don't know how to read. The New Jersey-based teacher shared in her Reddit post that the last couple of years have been very stressful, but the straw that broke the camel's back was realizing that her 10th grade students couldn't read at grade level. In fact, they could barely read at all. They were reading 2nd and 3rd grade level books like Charlotte's Web and Bridge to Terabithia. She turned to other teachers at her school for advice, but it turns out they were dealing with the same thing. In desperation, this teacher said, "I'm at a loss." Parents are mad that their kids are failing, but there's not much she can do, especially when it comes to student behavior, because students are rude, always on their phones, and destructive. She believes the issue is students lacking the desire to learn and a system and country that doesn't believe in education. For years, other countries have been outperforming the U.S. education system. Author and parenting expert John Fogel said on TikTok that school in the United States is not set up with kids in mind. The country with the global reputation for having the best education model is Finland, and it's because they put their kids first. They don't teach to tests. Teachers are giving carte blanche to actually teach. Not only that, there's no homework, the school day is shorter, and there are more breaks during the day. We're to a point where the entire education system in the US needs to be revamped in order for teachers and students to succeed. The kids are getting lost in the mix, and teachers suffer the collateral damage. It may seem like options are limited for parents in our current system, but parents can get involved. Vote in school board elections, get involved in state government, and join the PTA.
And none of that's gonna work. All right. And then PTA is gone. All right. And see what we have to understand, this generation, the generation that we'll see, the youth, kindergarten through 12, they're done. They're finished. Because see, we're just now seeing the results, okay, of the propaganda and the psyops of the 90s, early 2000. We're seeing the results of that now. These YNs, the single mothers, the feminists, and you see the drill culture. See, we're seeing the effects of that now, and they started that in the early 2000s. You see, we haven't even seen the effects of this generation that they got brewing K through 12 now. Okay, we haven't even seen those effects yet. All right, and it's horrific. Well, see, that's why, as the scriptures say, let's go here. That's why I posted this in the beginning. All right, this is the book of Matthew 24:22. It says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved for the elect's sake." All right, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Okay, so the Lord has to just cut it off, man, because it only gets worse. Okay, it only gets way worse, man. So eventually, the Lord is just going to intervene and hit the reset with this third world war. Okay, now I want to get this because who's been in control over the school curriculum for almost the last 123 years, going on 125 years. Now I typed in this quote. The brother El Shaquat, he big on them quotes, and you have this. It says the quote. It says, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers." Is often attributed to John D. Rockefeller, which he's just an extension of the Rockefellers are nothing but the American Rothschilds. Okay, it was the Rothschilds. They're over there in Europe. Okay, and the Rockefellers are nothing but the American branch. Okay, of the Rothschilds. They changed their names. Okay, and it says is often attributed to John D. Rockefeller, an American industrialist. The quote is often mentioned in the discussion about education. Some sources suggest that Rockefeller, when founding the General Education Board in 1902, okay, and this is what created the curriculum. Okay, this is what created the curriculums for these public schools, man. Some private schools as well, but this is where the curriculum comes from. Okay, and you're being taught to be a nation of workers, not thinkers. Okay, this is what we was taught, to be producer consumers, not critical thinkers and creative. Okay, it says, when founded the General Educational Board in 1902, may have wanted a system that created productive factory workers. Because you think about it, when you go to work, you got to be there at a certain time. Okay, you get a lunch break just like in school. Okay, you might get another break. You might get a recess where you get your 15-minute break like recess at school. Okay, and then at the same time in the evening you go home, and it's usually Monday through Friday. Okay, school Monday through Friday. Okay, so you're being conditioned for a factory, okay, or a plant, not to think. All right, you need to learn how to read, okay, just enough to work these machines. Okay, you don't need to read on the 12th grade level. Nigga, stop, go, emergency. You don't need a lot of reading. Just learn how to work these machines. Okay, and it says factory workers, instead of encouraging critical thinking, the goal may have been to train individuals for repetitive tasks and discourage independent thought. which might have prevented, all right, which might have prevented challenges to existing power structures and managerial positions. Okay, so what's being produced in America is nothing, all right, but slaves, man. Okay, you're a battery, okay, for the system, for capitalism, man. You see? So since 1902, the elites have took over, all right, education. All right, and we see what it has produced, man. You know, and that's why the Lord is going to translate, okay, um, the world, okay, into the hand of the righteous, man. Matter of fact, let me get that. I already got the other one. Let me get that one. Let me get these two. So when you go to Rock 10, you know, and that's why, you know, a lot of people, especially, you know, Israelites, because see, it ain't that people, all right, are idiots, but this man creates idiots, man. You go through that indoctrination for 13 years, which even when you go into, you know, what they call intelligence agencies, like the KJB, CIA, okay, it was this KJB um, guy from Russia, you know, and he came to America and he was doing interviews and he told the guy, you know, that was doing the interview, he said, look, it usually takes, you know, 12 to 15 years to change public opinion. Okay. He said 12 to 13 years and you can change public opinion on anything with enough repetition. So the school system is set up for you to at least go 13 years. You know, and if you go to college, you know, it's another, you know. So he was saying, you know, how it takes, you know, 12 to 13 years to change, all right, the opinion of the masses, man. And that's why you see a cycle of every, you know, decade, you know, every, you know, decade or more, all right, public opinion changes drastically, man. Okay, things that are accepted now that wouldn't have been accepted in the early 2000s. Things that are accepted in the early 2000s wouldn't have been accepted, okay, in the early 90s. Okay, so forth and so on. All right, and this devil, you know, he has mastered. That's why I say the inward thought of everyone is deep. You know, he's more crafty than any beast of the field. And this is what this man invests his time and resources into, is dumbing the people down. Okay, to his madness, man. Okay, so let's go here to uh let's see, did I put it up? This is Rock 10 and 4, and it says, the power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable, man. All right, because Esau's rulership is not profitable to the earth, man. All right, it's very counterproductive and detrimental. This man has ruined everyone and everything, man, with his rulership. Okay, that's why this man must be stopped. You know, he's destroying people in every way you can think of. He's destroying people, man. All right, this is the book of Sirach, chapter 10, verse 8. It says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Okay, and it's going to be from Esau, Edom unto Jacob. Okay, the kingdom is going to be translated from the nation of Edom, the wicked, okay, to the elect of Jacob, man. Okay, a righteous government. All right, because this man, all right, has completely, you know, destroyed all the creation, okay, of the Lord, man. He's destroying all creation. All right. This guy has to, you know, be stopped, man. All right. And this is the last one. Wisdom of Solomon 6 and 24 said, but the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, and a wise king is the upholding of the people, man. All right. And we're seeing a wicked king completely just destroy the people, man. But our kingdom is going to be a kingdom of wisdom and knowledge. All right. We're not gonna need to dump people down, because we're going to rule a righteous kingdom. Okay. When you operate in righteousness, you have nothing to hide. Okay. You have nothing that you got to get over on the people. No, you can be straightforward when it's righteous, man. All right. But when you scheming and plotting and, I got all this madness going on, then you have to, dumb the people down so you can stay steps ahead of them. Okay, to keep on going with wickedness, man. But in righteousness, you don't have to do that. Everything gonna be straightforward. It is what it is, and we're gonna want our slaves to be wise, man. Okay, we're gonna want all right, Elam and Ishmael. We want them niggas to be wise. All right, so they can perform all right their task, okay, efficiently, man. Okay, so that was the point. Just wanted to get into that. Watching those two videos. Thought it was interesting. So Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified. Till the next time I say Shalom, Kwame Yashala, Abba, soon Shalom.